That's right.
All right. Well, good morning. We're going to do part two. I think I'll put part one out there. Zach just went blank on me, and I thought I was going to keep things going for a minute, and then he still couldn't come back. So we did about 10 minutes, and here we go. Part two. How we
We're
doing, Zach?
back and better than ever. I know, we were having a great conversation about Hollywood Brown too, my favorite, and that's when they silenced me.
So why don't we start there then, right? Let's get right into it because we did a few minutes on how great the Ravens were last week. But more I think about it, it's Friday. Every Ravens fan has already digested all of their pats on their back, and now we're going to the Super Bowl and all that great stuff. So let's get back to reality. We're playing the Cardinals. Is it a 4-quarter game, or do I get to fall asleep halfway through the third quarter?
It's sadly going to be a four-quarter game. As much as I don't want it to be a fourth quarter game, and as much as it shouldn't be a fourth quarter game,
Okay.
it's going to be a four-quarter game in Arizona. And we talk about Hollywood. I've decided he's either going to get 2 catches for 13 yards or he's going to break the receiving record. Like there's going to be no in between. We're either shutting him down or he's going to have an absolute day against us. Like I just feel it. So it's going to be. I'm interested to see what happens there.
So the headline, and we're recording here about 10:30 in the morning. The headline, it's Friday. The headline is Kyler Murray has been a full participant. Um, I think we both agree that this is not the week that you bring him back. James Conner, their running back's not playing. So for purposes of analyzing the game, let's assume Dobbs, the quarterback's playing. Give us a little bit. Nobody watches more football than you. What is the take on Dobbs? How are the Cardinals going to attack us? Where are they weak? Give me a preview of what we should look at.
I mean, Josh Dobbs is. This is going to sound. Josh Dobbs isn't going to beat you. Josh Dobbs is not going to do Lamar Jackson things where he's going to run around for 4 quarters, make defenses' life hell, and make plays. He is going to run the offense, and they are going to hope that Hollywood Brown can get open. And then Michael Wilson is the guy. I loved him coming out of Stanford. I would say he's gone up to their wide receiver two at this point, and Dobbs loves him. A big body receiver. I don't want to say he's taken over for Zach Ertz, their tight end, as the security blanket because Zach Ertz is always going to be someone that you have to worry about in the middle of the field. That's where they're going to, I'm not say want to focus on because I think with Roquan and Patrick Queen in the middle, Roquan looks all good to go. I think they eliminate Zach Ertz, and I think they're going to try to eliminate Hollywood, which makes a guy like Michael Wilson, that guy in their offense this week where it's okay. How do we make sure he can't beat us? Which is weird to say about a third round rookie, but he's kind of that guy where he's not going to beat you for the 80-yard touchdown bomb, but he's going to methodically get 3-4 catches on a drive for 55 yards and just keep on one at a time moving down the field.
One of the things that I tell people that are betting on sports to listen to, and frankly, if you're just a super fan and you want to consume the content, is in the middle of the week, usually Wednesdays, depending on if the game's on Sunday. Generally speaking, it's Wednesdays is when the head coach, offensive coordinator, and defensive coordinator talk to the media. And that's when you can start to get an idea of what the game plan is going to be. Listening to Arizona's coaches, and the stats bear it out. They're moving the ball well down the field. It's the red zone where they're getting stuck. Ravens obviously fixed their red zone issues last week. Hopefully that's a sign of things to come. I want to switch over to our defense here for a second because we frankly haven't played a lot of red zone defense. And you said it's going to be a 4-quarter game. I've been a little down here on the Ravens the whole season, but I don't know if Arizona has the horses. I feel like the defense is exceeding expectations. And there's 2 things I wanted to ask you specifically.
Yeah.
First of all, who is the number 1 corner now? Because is Brandon Stevens our number 1 corner? Let's start right there.
I can't give Stevens it over Humphrey still, but Brandon Stevens is quietly putting together a very, very good season. And honestly, it's so funny to say after we're talking about such a great season he's having at corner. I think he's the safety of the future. I think once Geno Stone moves on next year, I think he fits that downhill type of safety more than a cover corner. But for man, what he's doing right now, and I think a lot of it is he's put in good spots by Mike McDonald. But Brandon Steven, he just is another name on that long list of, oh, Raven player in their third, fourth year steps up.
So he jumps out, and then I'll be honest, I love the Ravens. I follow the Ravens. It wasn't until last week, what's it, Arthur Millette, the third corner, number 10. He is all over the field. It
Mhm.
makes me look, it's very, very normal to bash Hardball after because he's been here forever and he lends himself to criticism
Yeah.
in certain ways. But his background was a secondary coach. He handpicked McDonald. This secondary, so Stevens, I mean, I could talk for 10 minutes about him. Give the fans a little bit if you can on our third corner, because here's a stat for you. And this is just, it gives away what the game plan is, right? Which is what are the percentage of the snaps that certain guys play? You know, some
Mhm.
guys you watch the game and you're like, hey, he's not been on the field a lot, or he has, but you don't know until you look at the stats. So last week, Stevens and Humphrey each had the same amount of stats, or excuse
Yeah.
me, snaps. 89% of the snaps, 67. Arthur Millette's on the field for 60 snaps. At 80%, he's on the field just as much as them. Who the heck is he, number one? And is he as good as I think he is?
So Arthur Millette, talk about a guy who just got here. He came in at the end of training camp, used to play for the Steelers, actually a special teams guy. Came in originally. They were like, okay, he's probably going to help us on the special teams. That was more, okay, he's going to play the slot a little bit. And then he just keeps producing. I mean, like you said, to a lot of people, it's like, who the hell is this guy that a week ago I had no clue who he is? And now he's rushing in to get huge sacks. He's breaking up passes, and he really is having an incredible year. Especially for when you look in, he came in at the end of camp, supposed to be okay. Yeah, he might help out a little bit in corner, but mostly he's going to be depth in special teams. And now he's playing 80% of the snaps. So I think it also shows you how the Ravens run things if you produce, you're going to play.
So
You
then you
know,
go, yeah, and then you
yeah,
go to
guys over Rock Ya-Sin, Ronald Darby, stuff like that, who we paid to come in to play corner. Millette's out playing them, and the Ravens are like, okay, you're playing, man.
and then there's something else that people need to understand. Again, not trying to be condescending or talk down to anybody here, but we spend so much time as Ravens fans complimenting Roquan Smith. Does
Yeah.
a great job. I'm the biggest Roquan Smith fan too. But let me just throw another thing at you.
Mhm.
Matabuke, 40 snaps. Travis Jones, 35. Pierce, 34. Roderick Washington, 33. The rotation up front, the fact that they can just put guys in there, and that I'm sorry, Pierce 34 snaps. So there's four guys. One more time. Matabuke 40, Travis Jones 35, Pierce 34, Washington 33. They are so fresh.
Mhm.
There's not a hierarchy. It's just about having fresh guys up front. And that's why we see Roquan and Patrick Queen. There's no hands on them. I mean, it's eerily similar of how the Ravens built their defenses around Ray Lewis. And
Literally.
I just want
Exactly.
to know. Yeah, I was gonna say, am I missing anything? Because when I'm watching right now, I feel like our defense is so. I mean, it is just so well put together. I don't see any weaknesses. We still haven't. We didn't even talk about Kyle Hamilton. If the
Yeah.
Ravens are going to improve anywhere on defense, is there something that I'm not seeing? Because frankly, I'm ready to say that Marlon Humphrey is more of a lot. Like I actually like the play of Stevens a lot more, and I'll be curious to see as the season moves on when we play the elite receivers who
Yeah.
draws those matchups. But what are you seeing overall from the defense? Are you as high as it on I as I
Yeah.
am?
I think this defense is otherworldly. And I really do think so. And I think it starts with the communication and just how well prepared Roquan gets them and stuff like that. But just the way, and each week you see these analysts break down how well Mike McDonald disguises things, how I guess, the non-normal pressures he brings. Arthur Millette suddenly, Kyle Hamilton has a 3-sack game. You
We
do not.
very rarely bring like 6 or 7 guys. It's like a
Yeah,
blitz where it's almost like, did we only rush 4 again? But we're still getting to them.
yeah, but it's like, oh, we rushed 4, but Travis Jones dropped into the middle of the field and the safety came in and got the sack. And you see so many of those plays happen right now where it is a lot of schemed up stuff, which is funny how I 11 Raven players have sacks this year. And I believe we're number one in the league. And it's like, it's so funny because it doesn't necessarily feel that way. Like, we don't have anyone where you're like, oh, you got to block him or he's going to get a sack every time. It's just everyone is getting pressure. And that puts even more pressure on the offense when it's not just one guy.
Yeah, that's why I wanted to highlight the front 4 of those guys because and Travis Jones, I'm glad you mentioned him. What was he, a 3rd round pick for us a couple years
Yeah.
ago? I mean, at the time, people thought that was a great draft pick. That's turning out to be fantastic. Let's go to the other side of the ball. And again, I love looking at the snaps. It's to me, it's like basketball with shots.
Yeah.
One of the things I like to think about is what is that locker room going to be like when they start looking at the stats? They're like, why the hell did you take 17 shots? You made 3, like, so for the same thing for football, it's like after the game, it's like, hey, how come I only played X amount of snaps? And for the Ravens, this is what we talked about in our first iteration before you blacked out on me. Zay Flowers is clearly becoming on par with Mark Andrews as far as the game plan for the defensive coordinator. He is getting just as much of attention, unlike our friend Hollywood, who I think is a one-trick pony because he doesn't want to take the hits. He doesn't necessarily want to go over the middle. We can get the ball to Flowers anywhere he wants it. I'm gonna give you this stat, and then I want you to go on the offense. So last week, and I wish I had the other stats from the previous weeks because I'm assuming it's gone up. But Flowers played 73% of the snaps last week, back up at 57%. And that to me is like, wow, that was week 7. I'm picturing this playoff game, him getting 15 targets. Are you as high on him as I am? And what's your overall take on the offense, specifically going into this matchup?
Uh, I I think he's going to go down as Derek Mason said it. Torrey Smith has said he's going to go down as one of the best wide receivers and probably the best in Ravens history if he stays. He's We're 7 weeks games in and he's 399 yards away from the rookie receiving record for the Ravens. I mean, he is just on pace to shatter these records. So I think specifically Zay, he's as good, if not better than advertised. He's everything we could have hoped he would be. And then as an offense as a whole, I think Kurt Warner brought this up and did a good video on it. There's so much left to be desired on offense. There's so many things that aren't clicking, which is weird to say after that dominant win. There were so many times like the Aguilar touchdown where it wasn't a design play that scored. It was Lamar Jackson saving the day that
Mhm.
scored that touchdown. And it was like Todd Monken even commented on Kurt Warner's comments and agreed with him. He's like, yeah, we aren't there. There is stuff where our spacing, we run the wrong routes and we have 3 guys within 5 yards of each other. And that brings me hope of, okay, we're putting up these numbers now. There are still so many more levels that they think we can get to.
Which is why, at the end of the day, you really don't care. I think we talked about this last week, how you're playing until the last month of the season. They don't practice. We're not going to have a long rant about this, but they don't practice the way they used to. So they are working out the kinks. You just want to get the wins. It doesn't really matter, especially now that there's only one bye. I mean, the Chiefs had already slipped up. To get that bye would mean everything. So
Mhm.
let's get into this specific matchup. What do we need to look for? Arizona, Buda Baker's their best player. He's back. He's their safety. The Cardinals defense is led by a head coach that's a defensive coordinator.
Mhm.
He obviously figured out something to do, against the Cowboys and their lone win. Do the Ravens want to come out here and be aggressive? Do we want to run? You said it's going to be a 4-quarter game. You're laughing. You just don't want us to turn the ball over and get the half
Yeah, I think
13
that's
or something.
exactly. I think that's exactly what's going to end up happening. I think the Ravens are going to come into this game with a just win. Like, I think, like I said earlier, it's how can they respond to success? And, it will be interesting because I could also see them coming out and being like, let's try to put this away early, which scares me into thinking, is that when we give Arizona these mistakes that keep them in the game for 4 quarters? But I think this is going I honestly think the game plan is gonna be a lot like Detroit, even though it kind of opened up where they're gonna try to get the ball to Flowers and Andrews early in the game. They're gonna try to get Lamar in a rhythm because I've noticed over the past few weeks to start the game, they've really started focusing on getting these quick short passes immediately. Okay, let's get the ball on a screen real quick to Zay Flowers, try to get 8 yards. They're trying to almost just like, okay, we're not going to come out and take a big shot and try to blow
Into
it
some
open.
rhythm.
Yeah, it's like, okay, they Monken has a very good understanding of, okay, once we're in rhythm, this offense can be unstoppable,
So
but we can't force it.
anybody that follows you saw you get a little I don't know what the right word is, maybe emotional, trying to wish Derrick Henry down here to Baltimore, or up here to Baltimore, I guess is the right
Yeah.
way of saying it. Is that the spot? Is it because it's Derrick Henry, or do you not feel great about, because I like Mitchell as the third guy. I think him and Justice Hill are relatively like irreplaceable. Like Justice Hill, if he gets injured like he usually
I
does, Mitchell comes in. Is Gus Edwards, do you not feel super comfortable with that? Or is it just Derrick
so
Henry is the game changer?
so it's gonna be both. It's Does Derrick Henry give us a massive upgrade over Gus? I don't think so. I think it adds a another element because weirdly enough, Derrick Henry is not great on short yardage situations where Gus thrives. So you can play them off each other in that sense. But I think it's more of a security thing of the reason why I want to get him because a lot of people say, well, the Ravens don't have a running back problem. Like we have Gus Edwards. Well, they're Gus Edwards, missing a game or two away from having a massive running back problem. It's not like we have both JK and Gus healthy, where it's like, okay, if one were to go down, then you have the other. I don't. This offense is very different if Justice Hill has to be the number one back.
Mhm.
So is Derrick Henry going to be at this point in his career a game changing? Now the Ravens are easily the Super Bowl favorites. I don't necessarily think so. I think it gives them a leg up on a lot of people again, but I think it's more for, okay, now we can do so much more with the offense.
Yeah, and Dobbins won't be back next year. I mean, his career he'll move on. So there's a lot of different things the Ravens can do. The best thing about being a Ravens fan, and not taking a shot at the Orioles, I hope this doesn't come off this way, but the Ravens, if there's a trade to be made for a big player at the
So,
trade
so go
deadline,
get
they'll do it. All right. So it's a lot of Ravens stuff. I was thinking about something that I wanted to throw at you. I didn't tell you I was going to ask you this. And it's because you got the freaking Orioles stuff in the background. You just can't get away from it. You're a super fan. Imagine being the Phillies fan. Are you more at peace with how the Orioles season ended? Like, if you were a Phillies fan, what would have happened? Would you have had to take a couple weeks off after being in
oh,
game 6 and 7?
it would have that I was actually having this conversation a few days ago with a friend. I was like, you know, it sucks getting swept, but I within the fourth inning of game 3, I knew it was over. I was like, well, that sucks. It's like if we would have blown it, especially just because Philly was so unstoppable. I actually saw on a podcast I didn't think Philly was losing again, and then they lost the series. So, but it's just so funny. Like that would have been a heartbreaking downfall.
Do you have we'll call it the ignorant friend that thinks like there's the games are fixed from time to
Oh
time?
God, yeah. Oh yeah.
So what happens is, and I don't want to minimize anybody's theories for being outside the box, because there has been scandals,
Yeah.
but in this day and age, because there's so much money to be made, that it's with all the security that's available, they really, really don't need to fix any of these games. And if there was ever a freaking game to fix, it would be somebody telling the umpire at some point during these Phillies Diamondbacks games, we cannot have the Diamondbacks in the World Series. You do know that, right? So I just want people to know, if you're betting on these games, you end up losing, or the ref makes a bad call. the political conspiracy theories have lots of validation. I subscribe to all of them. Like, I'm ready for them. Let's talk about them. But for sports betting, sports fixing,
Yeah.
really don't see it. I feel like there's been a couple one-offs before the technology. It just, you can't get away with anything. I don't know if you.
Someone would say something. That's the other thing is when you're messing with people's livelihoods in that situation of these players, like if a player finds out that it's being fixed against them, that's going to get out very fast. So it would be, like you said, it would be insanely hard to pull that off.
Yeah. And so I think the World Series, I mean, you and I watch it. We love baseball, but man, for the casual but it's also.
Then casual's not tuning in.
But there's something interesting, and maybe we'll do this next podcast. I want to talk about a little bit, give a little preview of it, of like the business behind the scenes of when it comes to how we're consuming sports now and the competing factions. And eventually there's going to be my prediction is eventually we'll be watching these games similar to how the MLS is, which is every game's on Apple. Right now, the NFL and the NBA and Major League Baseball are doing a great job of having everybody bid against each other, and you get a game, you get a game, you wake up at 11 o'clock and watch a baseball game. It's like at some point that's going to change, but I'm fascinated by how sports are evolving from consuming it. I wanted to throw this at you before we go. When the Ravens aren't on, right, and you're just watching football, are you a red zone guy? Do you end up? Uh-oh, I'm not gonna lose you. I think you did. So it'll be perfect timing because there's no way we're in the third spot again. I'll say bye to everybody on behalf of you. This is what happened last time. For the record, I started talking for like 2 minutes thinking you'd come back. So you can just wave if you can hear me. I don't know if you can hear me. No, I can't even hear me. All right, everybody have a great day. Zach will be on Twitter. You can find him. I'll put the Twitter on there. Everybody have a great day. Thank you.